Hello and welcome to another conversation with a volunteer guardian ad litem. Today with me we have Mr. Jim Hill. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
And today we're going to ask him a couple of questions about his experience with the Guardian ad litem program. So tell me, Jim, what brought you to the Guardian ad litem program?
Well, I retired and I didn't want to just sit on the couch. So I
Okay.
tried some other opportunities and decided that they were good things, but they weren't what I was looking for because I wanted hands-on. So I came to the Guardian program when I talked to some other guardians because it's the absolute best hands-on that you can find.
Awesome. I would like for you to expand a little bit on hands-on. What do you mean by hands-on?
Well, the good news is we deal directly with people. And so as opposed to pointing to something and say, I was a part of that, you point to it and say, I helped this child, I helped this parent. So you're directly working with a human being, and there's just nothing like that. That's the hands-on side of it.
Oh, awesome. Beautiful. And how long have you been with the Guardian ad litem program?
As of the end of this month, it'll be 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, one of the original gal guys.
Original gal, guys. Okay. And what does a day in the life of a volunteer look like? Can you take me through that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that varies. Uh, Generally, you spend like a couple of hours on a visit, depending on how far away your children are. You may go to the doctor's office, you may make phone calls, you do reports. So the nice thing about it is it's never mundane. You go to court every once in a while. So there's just something different to do all the time. And you can pretty much control, how long you work on it and things like that. So it's just a lot of fun.
Okay, awesome. And how many hours on average would you say you spend doing all of those things for the program?
Now, that's one of those hard ones when you use average.
I
But
know.
the way it works for most people, when you first get a case, you kind of get swamped with some things that you have to do. You have to go to some court hearings, you have to go meet the parents, you do various things like that. And then once that's over with, then the time goes way down because then you're once a month visiting your child. You might visit the school and various things like that. So no matter what your schedule is, you can pretty much control whether you do it by phone call or personal visit, how much time you spend. So at first, I'd say it's probably 5, 6 hours a week for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then after that, it can be like 2 to 4 hours. One of the great things about the GAL organization, if you can't get off for a court hearing, the GAL office has somebody that can fill in for you because we do reports so that everybody knows what's going on. So you shouldn't be scared off if you think, well, I can't get out in the middle of the day or something like that.
Okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And what would you say is the most challenging part of what you do as a guardian ad litem volunteer?
I've talked to several volunteers, and we all have different answers to that question. And I think it's personality based. But for me, with my personality, I go in and meet the children and meet the parents. And the hardest thing to do is let it unfold and don't immediately take sides. You've got to be impartial because the parents' stories, you're hearing two sides of the same story. So for me, the hardest thing to do is wait and decide way into it who's working hard, who's not working hard.
Okay. And on the flip side of that, what would you say is the most rewarding part of it?
I can answer that real easy. I almost got choked up. The biggest thing for me is, and it kind of goes to what I said earlier, after you had a case for a little while, you become an important part of the child's life. And if you have good cooperating parents, you become an important part of the parent's life. And you're somebody that they can talk to that's not with the state and they don't feel quite as threatened. And so you develop these relationships that you talk about or think about your case way after it's over. But the biggest thing is when those kids or those parents become special, or you become special to them, and you become part of their life.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing. Certainly something, that would make a lot of people want to take part in something like this. What would you
Absolutely.
s- what would you say to someone that might be considering becoming a volunteer child advocate with the Guardian Ad Litem program?
Well, I'll tell you, it's very rewarding. Sometimes it's very disappointing. It's never boring. That's the biggest thing, because you're always doing something different. But as you go through those and you keep learning, it still goes back to that feeling you get when you can point to a human being and say, I made a difference in this person's life. And that's why everybody should do it. And we need more people.
Awesome, very true. We always need more people. So
Mhm.
I appreciate you taking the time to volunteer with our program. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. Any final thoughts you want to share with anybody that might be watching?
Yeah, the one thing that sometimes scares people when you go through the class, the great thing about this, there's just so much information. And then you walk out the door and now you're a guardian. Well, the good news is you get a case, you have a mentor, and your first visit with the family, your first visits with court, anything like that, you have a mentor that goes, because all of those things you learn start to come together. And then you learn you didn't even know what questions to ask. But there's so many people at the office that you can call up and say, what do you think about this? How should I handle that? That just don't panic during the training part of it.
Okay, great advice. Well, thank you again for your time and thank you for watching.
You're very welcome.